No shows, rain, and a whole lot of data. This week we're chatting about Barcelona testing, so get ready because you've been summoned to the steward's office. Hello everyone and welcome back to the steward's office. I'm Syra, and this week the 2026 F1 cars hit the track properly for the first time. I feel like I can say it now. F1 is officially back. We have started testing, and to be fair, this wasn't the normal test that we get. Barcelona testing was also called a shakedown because it was completely behind closed doors. No media was allowed in, no fans were allowed to sit in the grandstands. It was just the teams. A couple of people from media were there just to do interviews with the drivers and the team principals, but other than that, no one was really allowed inside to report on what was going on. We actually have 3 sets of tests in Formula 1 this year, and we normally don't get that in pre-season, but because of the massive change in regulations, F1 decided to give the teams a bit more time on track to test out the car, get the drivers used to it, and make sure reliability was all good. Barcelona was that first block of testing that we got, and behind closed doors, the teams wanted to have that privacy to get through any reliability issues that they have. And also, Bahrain do have a sort of exclusive right to being able to televise testing, which I think did play a part in it. But putting that aside, there were still some reports that we got out of that test in Barcelona that I'm going to chat to you guys about today. There wasn't a whole load of information. Bahrain will give us a little bit more, but thought we'd have a quick chat about what went on out there. It might be a shorter episode than usual because there isn't as much to talk about, but let's see how this goes. We had 10 teams take part in this shakedown test. Now, we do actually have 11 teams on the grid this year, but we will get into what happened as to why one team wasn't there. It ran over 5 days, Monday to Friday. Teams could pick any 3 days they wanted to do their testing over those 5 days. So even if they picked a Monday and then a Wednesday and a Friday, that was fine. Didn't have to be consecutive days. Normal rules applied to testing. You could only have 1 car out per team. And to be fair, the main focus for all of the teams were checking that the systems were working, that reliability was all good, iron out any issues that they were facing, get the drivers used to the car, understand the car's fundamentals, all those really key important things that are basic, but with a new set of regulations, you need to find that baseline again. So that was the main focus for the teams. Security was incredibly tight around the Barcelona circuit because, F1 really did not want anyone near the track, let alone in the circuit area. Photos of helicopters flying overhead, of security coming outside of the track to move people away from it. They really wanted to lock this down to make sure that no media, no photos that weren't allowed were out there on the internet. But let's get into the one team that did not take part in this test, and that was Williams. And okay, let's kick off with the fact that yes, there have been a lot of rumours about what's been going on with Williams and what's going on with their car. They, in 2025, were very vocal about the fact that they'd stopped developing the Williams car for the previous season, for the 2025 season. They were really focused on putting all of their energy into 2026. I think people from Williams were saying, they're going to be one of the first teams that are ready. Evidently not. They were not ready in their development and manufacturing process to get that car out and ready for Barcelona, which, I mean, for Williams more than anyone is super disappointing because they're the ones losing a lot of track time and a lot of data. The rumour was that they were failing their crash tests and had failed it a couple of times, so the FIA couldn't actually sign off and say the car was safe enough to be on track. And we also heard rumours that this car was like 20 kilograms over the minimum weight limit. Williams will not confirm or deny any of it. They're like, we wanted to run some virtual tests on the car, and we thought it'd be more valuable to stay in Grove at their factory and work on the car. Regardless of whether it's true or not that they failed the crash test or whether the car is overweight or not, right? That's an aside from the fact that the drivers have lost a lot of time getting used to a brand new car that they wouldn't have had a feel for before because of how different this car is, that the team has lost a lot of data and a lot of running just to figure out reliability issues and everything. So they are going to be a couple of steps behind of a lot of the teams from Bahrain. There's no denying that. Does it put them on the back foot? Yes. Do I think it's catastrophic? No. But I can't lie. It's not great. It's not looking great right now. And they might come to Bahrain and everything is absolutely fine. And that is definitely best case scenario, but we will wait and see what happens here, and maybe we'll get more clarity on what was going on at the factory when they actually get to Bahrain. So we'll wait and see what happens when they head out there for their first testing of the season. But Barcelona testing for the other 10 teams, it wasn't the easiest with the weather playing a bit of a part. Tuesday was particularly wet and rainy, so the teams that did opt to take part there, it wasn't the most straightforward day for testing for them, but they did opt to still run. And overall, I've got to be honest with you guys, reliability was not really an issue for the teams. I think a lot of us, me included, we're expecting it to be just more of an issue. I think we were expecting there to be more issues engine-wise more than anything, but actually, even though some teams did stop on track and it caused red flags, nowhere near the level I think any of us thought it was going to be, which is a really good sign, because the last thing you want is that we start the season and the constructors is kind of decided by which teams just have a reliable engine more than which teams are quick and which drivers are getting the most out of their car. But let's have a quick rundown of the teams. Like I said, there's not a whole load we can really glean from what's gone on, but there are little bits and pieces, and from the interviews that the drivers have given, we've got a better idea, I guess. Obviously, we'll start off with our championship leaders, McLaren. They had, I think there was a fuel leak issue, or it was something to do with the fuel, right? They had that issue on a Thursday afternoon. That was their second day of testing, and that cut short a lot of that afternoon run in. Oscar Piastri didn't really get a lot of time in the car on Thursday. Other than that, though, it was pretty decent for them. There weren't major issues. Their first day of testing, it seemed to be a little bit stop-start from what the reports were saying. They were going out, doing a handful of laps, then going back in and then back out again. But if they were just trying to play around with different things and look at how to optimize the car, that's understandable. Lando had said that it was just really special seeing the number one on his car for the first time. That was special for him and for the team, because it has been several years, guys, since they won a drivers' championship, and seeing that number on their car. But he did also say that these cars require a new way of thinking and of driving, which I don't think is a surprise, because one, there are brand new systems in play, and two, aerodynamically, that car will feel different compared to the 2022 regs. And I think that is what makes me think that Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz have lost out a little bit there, because the other drivers will have had time to get used to that a little bit more than what they'll have now. Oscar Piastri also seemed pretty positive. He feels like they're well prepared going ahead into Bahrain. No major surprises have cropped up, which is a good sign. And overall for McLaren, they just said they're planning to have a quicker and more reliable car out for Bahrain testing once they go through all of the data and work out anything they need to. So yeah, for McLaren, nothing super wow, but I think this was a really good, decent, reliable test for them, and they'll be happy. Going over to Mercedes, and I think over winter break, this has been the team that everyone has wanted to keep an eye on for the 2026 season, between the rumours of them finding a grey area with the engine regulations and finding extra horsepower that the other teams don't have, that in general they have the strongest engine, and they obviously really dominated the last huge change in engine regulations that we had. Everyone was really wanting to keep an eye on them, and they had a really good and consistent testing, to the point that they've completed the most amount of laps over those 5 days. A real phenomenal effort from everyone in that team, and I think that has kind of really made everyone look at that car and that team and be like, yeah, but we're going to keep an eye on what happens in Bahrain going into the first race. But I don't think that necessarily has surprised anyone. Drivers both seem really happy, but yeah, the team have now said they're just going to focus on setups going out to Bahrain. Red Bull were a little bit harder to read for me, right? So the big thing for them was what was going to happen with their powertrain. It's the first time that they're creating their own powertrain in partnership with Ford. But I do have to admit, as much as I thought we were going to have more issues with it, it was really reliable. And I think a lot of drivers on the grid were also really surprised by that. But really good signs from that engine. Isaac Hadjar did have quite a bit of a crash. I think it was on the Tuesday when it was raining towards the end of testing, to the point that, yeah, he had to get out of the car. The recovery vehicles had to come and get the F1 car off track, which I think was the only time that it happened through testing. The team were quite worried about whether or not they'd be able to take part in their final day of testing, just because they weren't sure whether they'd be able to do it on track or whether it was going to have to go back to England and get fixed. However, they did manage it. They got back out on Friday. I can't figure out whether they're really happy with what's going on or not, or whether they're just not trying to build up anyone's expectations. I think even though they're happy with the engine, I think the drivers and Laurent Mekies are still like, it's going to be a steep learning curve. But so far, the signs are looking good for them in terms of reliability, at least. Moving on to Ferrari. They had a decent testing, and I'm trying not to get too happy about that. They, I think, kind of surprised a lot of people. It didn't go badly. There were no reliability issues from them in this first test. The engine seems to be decent across all of the Ferrari powered cars as well. It was the same with the Mercedes powered cars. They did run on that Tuesday on that wet, rainy day, which means that they didn't get as many laps in on the Tuesday as they would have wanted to. So slightly on the back foot, I guess. But even saying that, they ended up with the second most amount of laps over testing after Mercedes, so that was a really decent effort from the team. They've said they finished their entire testing program that they wanted to do out in Barcelona, which is really, really good. It means that there were no major issues that made them lose time not being able to complete that program. The team feel like they're in a better place than they were last year, which is kind of surprising considering that we're in this new regulation era. But we'll take it. We're not going to fight about it. We're not going to debate it. We'll just take it. Drivers do seem really, really happy. Charles was like, yeah, even though we did the running on the Tuesday in the rain, yeah, okay, it wasn't the best, but we did get a lot of valuable lessons from that. And Lewis said the same. Fred Vasseur said, yeah, didn't encounter any major issues, which was an important outcome for them. They ended testing on Friday with Lewis Hamilton setting the quickest time. Now, the times genuinely mean nothing in testing because so many of the teams were just focusing on finishing their shakedown program, making sure that the car was reliable. But psychologically, you gotta think that's gonna give a really big boost to all of Ferrari and to Lewis Hamilton. So yeah, surprisingly good for Ferrari. Racing Bulls, I feel like I didn't hear a whole load about them, and even when I looked around, there wasn't a lot going on, but they did get a lot of mileage in between their two drivers, which is great because Arvid Lindblad is a rookie and it's probably grateful for all the laps he gets to do before we head out to the first race. But yeah, Liam Lawson was just saying that he is adapting and trying to adapt to the new regulations and the car, and that compared to when they started on Monday, by the end of testing, he felt like the car was in a much better place, which is a really big positive that they could find those areas to improve. Aston Martin had a bit of a tricky one. They had already said they were only going to be running 2 days out in Barcelona. They were only running on Thursday and Friday, which is fair enough. They only had 1 hour on the Thursday out on track, which I was quite surprised at because I was reading the Sky Sports feed and they were like, yeah, we're waiting, they're there. I mean, Sky Sports had announced that Adrian Newey and the team were there on Wednesday at track to set everything up ready for Thursday. But it was only about an hour before the end of the day that Lance Stroll got out on track with the car. He did an installation lap, went back in, they sorted some stuff out, he went back out again, and then the car stopped on track, which is not great. So he didn't get a whole load of running in, but the Friday they had Fernando Alonso in the car for the full day, and that was really consistent driving for them. They got more data than they did from Thursday. And even though overall Aston didn't get a whole load of running in, the drivers seem to be really happy with everything, which is the main thing. I think Fernando is very excited about this car, which is a good sign. What I will say is that we haven't really seen that test of reliability from the Honda engine that they're using. So we still have some question marks on how that's going to go. Haas, Ferrari powered car. They had a pretty good testing, if I'm honest with you. They had a reliability issue on Wednesday morning, which did curtail their running. It did mean that, Ollie Behrman didn't get the time in the car, but it was an easy fix. He did manage to get out in the afternoon. Esteban Ocon had a mammoth time in the car on Monday. He completed an insane amount of laps. He did say that he thought it was a really solid base to start from, and hopefully they'll get more performance into the car ahead of the rest of the season. And Ollie Behrman just saying, he's kind of learned what he likes and what he dislikes about the car, which will definitely help when it comes in terms of setup for him for the races. Aya Komatsu is happy with the progress the team have made, and fingers crossed this is a better season for Haas. Going on to one of our new teams with Audi, they've taken over Sauber. There were some reliability issues, so Bortoleto ended up stopping on track on the first day. Nico Hülkenberg later on in testing also had a stop on track. But, Bortoleto was saying, it felt an encouraging week of testing. They've managed to get through and uncover small issues in the car and figured out how to fix them. Jonathan Wheatley was saying, he's happy with the progress that they've made. And for them, it wasn't just testing out the car. They wanted to test out the entire trackside operation to make sure that was running smoothly. Time for Alpine, guys. Alpine caused the first red flag of testing. I wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm not. Colapinto stopped on track really early on during testing. I feel like the team itself are just not giving away a whole load at the moment when it comes to how they think the car is doing. Really what they've said is like, look, we've left Barcelona having ticked off some boxes. And I can't tell whether they mean that in a way they're looking at the entirety of their testing program across the 3 tests, or whether they're saying we've ticked off some boxes because we didn't really finish what we wanted to do in Barcelona. I can't tell. Given it's Alpine, I want to lean more towards the latter and say that they didn't finish Barcelona testing the way they wanted to, but we will wait and see. And finally, our last new team with 2 returning drivers, Cadillac, Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez, are back on the F1 grid. Now, they did have a good couple of issues that they needed to sort out. That was decent running. I don't think it was bad, but definitely not as much compared to the other teams. But I think that is to be expected because unlike Audi, who've taken over Sauber, Cadillac are a completely new team. They've got the Ferrari engine, but everything else is brand new. This operational setup, it is so new to them. Building a car, completely new. However, the drivers don't seem disheartened, right? And I think they're also realistic in knowing this is a new team and things aren't going to go smoothly straight away. Valtteri Bottas had said that it was just good to be back in an F1 car. Sergio Perez said that, look, everyone in Cadillac is happy that the issues are coming up early so they can figure out what's going on, figure out how to fix it, whether it'd come up again. And Valtteri Bottas really echoing the same kind of thoughts. So it's exploratory for them right now, but I don't think people are expecting anything else. And I think given that they're still trying to figure things out and understand the car and what's going on with it, I still think they're in a pretty decent place, all things considered. So I don't think testing necessarily went bad for anyone involved. I think it's looking really positive for most of the teams right now. I will be interested, genuinely really interested to see what happens with William in Bahrain. And I think in general we'll get a bit more of an understanding in the first Bahrain test, a little bit more in the second, and then obviously as the season goes on we'll see what's really going on with these cars. But it has made me so excited for F1 to come back. You guys have no idea. I can't wait, and I think knowing that we haven't had massive reliability issues as well makes me even more excited. But that is it for Barcelona testing. That was 5 days of running for the teams. They're going to be going back to the factories, looking through everything, figuring out what could work better and what isn't working at all. And we'll see what changes are made by the time we get to Bahrain. But thank you guys so much for listening, and diolch yn fawr. Make sure you follow me on TikTok and Instagram at stewards_office, and I'll see you guys the next time you're summoned to the Stewards office.